Casino in Popano Beach. We're going to be firing a bullet today in the event one of the Wsopc circuit. It's a $400 buy-in, $30K guarantee, one-day tournament. All the tournaments are ring tournaments, so I'm going to be trying to run good here, see if we can win some rings. I'm starting this series out with a bankroll of $3,200. This is what I have allotted for me to play this tournament series. It's a lot of lower buy-ins, but it looks like some good fields, so I'm definitely going to try to see if we can run something up here. Definitely going to try to do my best. As you can see, we're right here on the WSOP poker room here at the Isles Casino, or now it's the Harris Casino, but probably about 10 minutes away from, cards flying in event one. I already got my buy-in for it, so like I said, wish me luck. We'll see what transpires, and we'll go from there. What's going on? We're on the first break here. It's been crazy this first 4 levels, so I got a few strong hands to talk about, stuff that kind of went my way, didn't go my way. First big hand I was in was Ace King of Spades from the button. So get a limp around to me, one limper around to me, then I raise it up. So I raise it up 3x, 3 big blinds, and 3 big blinds, and then I get 4 callers. So at this point, okay, I got 4 callers coming behind. Everybody's calling in these early stages. So the flop comes 4, 5, 7, all spades. So now I'm just fist pumping in my head. I got the nuts, unless somebody has the 8-6 of spades, which is possible, but I'm not too worried. But everything does check around on the flop. So after the flop checks around, it comes an 8 on the turn, but it's an 8 of clubs. So that does give some people some straights, but once again, I have the nut flush, so I'm actually hoping somebody hit the straight at this point. So now it checks back to me. I bet about half pot at this point, which is about 2,500. So I bet half pot, and then at that point I get 2 callers to the river. So then the river comes out, it's another 4. So now the board is paired. There's a small possibility for some full houses, but I can't be scared of that. So I go ahead, and at this point I bet 120% pot, and I get 1 caller. He calls me. He has, I think he caught a straight. But either way, I'm not sure. I seen a 9, but I don't know what his last card was. He mucked the rest, and then I end up winning that pot. So that was a big one. So the second big hand, I got 7 pocket 7s from the hijack position. So at this point, I go ahead, raise it up 3 big blinds, I get 4 callers again. The flop comes Jack 10-4 rainbow. So at this point, I could still have all the ace kings, so I could have the draws, I could have any pocket pairs, could have pocket jacks or better. So when it checks to me, I want to thin out the field, so I go ahead and bet a pretty big bet on this one. I believe I bet pot. Thins out the field, I got one player with me, and then the turn is a 3, offsuit 3. So once again, still no flush draws on the board, but that Jack 10 is still on the flop. So at this point, I check, he checks, and then the river comes a queen. So now it completes ace king if I do have it, which I have all the ace king in my range. He bets, and then I raise him. He leads out, and then I raise to probably about a pot-sized bet here. So I raised to probably about like 6,000 or 7,000, and he thinks for a while. He goes into the tank, but he ends up calling it off with a queen. So he ended up beating me with a 1 pair, just a queen. It works sometimes, doesn't work other times, but I definitely tried to get the bluff through on that one. I got a few bluffs through on him before, but that one just didn't work out. Another nice hand, I had King 9 offsuit from late position. I believe I was cut off in this situation, and I raise it up, and I once again get like 3 callers to the flop. The flop is 8-7-7. At this point, it checks around, and then the turn is another 8. So we got double paired board on the turn. I decide to bet out on this one once it checks to me. I get 1 caller, the same guy who beat me in the 7s hand and called me off. And now we get to the river, which is a 3 of hearts. So complete blank. I still have all the strong aces, all the aces in my hand. So all the aces, all the overpairs to the board, 10s, jacks, queens, all that. So what I decide to do is I go ahead and I put it in on him. And he thinks for a while. I go ahead and put in a pot-sized bet. At this point, it's probably like 8,000, I believe. It's somewhere north of 5K. So it's 7 or 8,000. And at this point, he tanks for a while, but he ends up laying it down. So I end up getting it even with just king high. So that means he didn't have the ace, or he was afraid of a pocket pair higher than an 8. So at that point, I ended up getting that through. That was a good hand as well. So at this point, I'm sitting at about 45K. Starting stack was 30K, so I'm sitting pretty good. But then I get 1 hand, ace jack from the +1. I go ahead, raise it up. I get 2 callers, and then it gets back down to the small blind who decides to jam his 18K stack. Now this small blind is the same guy I played with the pocket 7s hand, same guy I played at where I bluffed the king 9 on the double paired 8s and 7s board. So he jams it in. I know he can be jamming kind of light here, so I wanted to go ahead and I took some time to think about it, what he could have. I got ace jack. I don't think he's jamming jacks, or I don't think he's jamming jacks or better, especially aces and kings. He's probably not jamming because he still has a pretty decent stack. 18K at this blind level, which is 200, 400. So, you know, he's sitting pretty good, but he ends up jamming. So I think about it and I'm like, okay, I beat a lot of his ace X's that he's jamming. I'm probably behind in any pair that he's jamming, but I decided to put it in thinking I still have some overcards to what he has. He turns over pocket queens. So at this point, I need some help. I only have 1 over, so I got to get the I got to get the ace. Flop comes, all low cards. He turns a queen, which gives him the trip. So at this point, I'm drawing dead. And then the river is a jack, which does me nothing. So at that point, I lost 18K on that, which took me back down to 24, 20. first interesting hand of note, I get pocket sixes. I raised to about 2.3 big blinds pre-flop from early position. I get 3 callers as usual. Everybody's still calling in these early stages of the tournament. And then the flop comes 9 of hearts, 8 of hearts, king. So now I'm looking at the board. It's very connected. There are some straight draws there. There's some flush draws there. Very dynamic board. I check from early position. It checks around the other 2, and then we have a bet from the button. So the button bets, I call looking to see something good on the turn. The turn comes a 6 of diamonds. So now I have turned a set. Now because it's 9-8 king, and there's the flush draws haven't made it there yet. The straight draws haven't made it there yet, because even if he has queen 10, jack 10, or queen jack, he still needs 1 card for it. So what I do is I check. He bets as I thought he would. He bets 62 or 63,000. No, not thousand. 62 or 6,300. I check raise to 20K. I check raise to 20K because at this point, the board is very dynamic. There's a lot of draws on the board. I want to charge draws the maximum without going all in. Because like I said, he could have queen jack of hearts. He could have queen jack offsuit. He could have ace queen with an overcard looking for a draw there. He could also have 2 pair. King 9 is a possibility. King 8 is somewhat of a possibility, I guess. But he could also have pocket 9s or pocket 8s. So I go ahead, I raise it up to 20K. He tanks for a while. So at this point, I know he has 2 pair or better. So I'm sitting just hoping if he's on one of those high value draws. I honestly don't want to call, but I definitely want 2 pair to possibly call. I actually catch eye contact with him, and at that point, I think that's what scared him off the hand. But I made eye contact with him, and then after that, he tanked a little longer, and he folded, and he ended up telling me that he had king 9, so he had the 2 pair. So he was thinking about calling it. But if I would have went maybe a little lower, maybe 18K, maybe 15K, he more than likely would have called with that. Definitely would have been some good value, but I'm happy to take down that pot. That was a big one. Now, this was an interesting hand that happened. I get pocket aces from under the gun. So at this point, I look at this and I'm loving it. So I go ahead and I min raise up to 2K. The blinds are 5K, 1K ante. So I raise it up 2 big blinds. Couple calls, checks around. Then you get the small blind to jam his stack of 45 big blinds. He jams a 45 big blind stack. And it gets back to me under the gun, and I'm staring at my cards. Obviously, I'm not folding, but I'm just wondering what could he possibly have, and there's 2 players behind as well. I don't want to let anyone else in the pot with any high equity draws that could come on the flop of the turn. So we're all playing fairly deep now because we all got pretty good stacks. But he, like I said, he jammed 45 big blinds, and I'm sitting there with 75 big blinds. I started the hand with 75 big blinds. So at this point, I'm wondering, should I just flat or should I re-jam just in case anybody else has more than 45 big blinds and decides to come along? So I think it's a strong play for me to re-jam here, simply because at this point you got 2 really big all-ins, a 45 and a 75 big blind all-in. So at this point I jam, there's 2 more and they tank, which means they're really thinking about calling the hand. So they both end up folding, and the villain in the small blind turns over ace king. I got pocket aces. The flop came 10, 5, 8. There was a 9, and then no, it was 10, 9, 5. 8 was the turn, then another 9. So then one of the tankers who folded in the hijack, he actually had Queen Jack suited, and he was debating calling. So I'm glad I rejammed and he didn't call, because he would have cracked my aces. So I won 45 big blinds off that stack. So now after that hand, I was sitting really high. I had well over 100 big blinds, about 110, 120 big blinds at that point. So, you know, I was looking good. Now, I done chipped down a little bit. I ran into aces. I had two hands back to back where I had Queen 10. The first one, flop a queen, but the pre-flop razor still has a lot of pocket aces, pocket kings, even pocket queens, ace queen, ace jack. So there's a lot there. So I limp. So not limp, but I flat my queen 10 suited. Flop comes queen high. He bets, I call. Third person in the hand, he calls. Then on the turn, it's a brick. The pre-flop raiser bets again. I debate raising, but I flat for 3K. And then the big blind who came along with us, because we're three-handed on the turn, he raises. So now he raises from 3K to 8K. And then the pre-flop raiser, he jams. Now, I start to tank because what queens does he have that are worse than mine? Pretty much none. So he either at this point has aces, kings, pocket queens, or ace queen. Or maybe king queen, but basically those are the hands that he has jamming in that confidently. So I fold. The big blind he calls. Big blind is on a draw. He has 6-5 of clubs, so he's looking for the flush draw because there's 2 clubs on the board. Doesn't come. He ends up doubling up the pre-flop razor to my right, two seats to my right, and luckily I got out of that. But the very next hand, I get Queen 10 suited again. Now I'm in the big blind, or no, I'm in under the gun, and I raise under the gun with Queen 10 suited, and then the low jack ends up raising my bet to 6K. So at this point, so I raised to 2, he raised to 6, and I call to come along. There's 1 club on the flop. I check. He bets a small amount. I end up calling. There's a third person in the hand. Queen comes on the turn. I check. He bets 10K. Third person in the hand goes all in for less. I call the 10K. The river comes a 9, which is a brick essentially to the board. And then at this point, I check because once again, he still has all of his ace queens, all of his aces, all of his kings, because he's the pre-flop raiser. He's the aggressor in this. So very strong player as well. So I check. He bets 25K into a pot that is now maybe 50K-ish. So very tempting. I got top pair. There's only a few hands that beat me other than, higher pairs. So he either has aces, kings, or ace, queen. So I end up calling the 25 because I'm running really deep here. I got 120 big blinds, 130 big blinds. So I call the 25K, which is basically a little less than 25 big blinds. It's probably about 20 big blinds. So he shows pocket aces. My top pair isn't good enough. And now that brings us down to where we are now. So about to go back, about to start the level 9, and wish me luck. Okay, back in my little quiet place, or semi-quiet place. We only got a few minutes till the end of registration. We're on our 3rd break, and man, those last 4 were crazy. So I chipped up a lot. I started back at the table with about 85K, 90K. And then I get into one hand, I'm in early position with pocket 4s. And I decide to raise. And I decide I'm going to call a 3-bet. But nobody 3-bets, but I get 4 callers to the flop. The flop? 4-8-4. So I flop quads. And I'm sitting here just loving life. And I'm just hoping I can get some callers. Now I 2.2x'd it pre-flop, so there's a decent amount in the pot, and I bet small. I bet 2,500, which is probably quarter pot at this point, because like I said, we had 4 callers and the flop. So I flop quads. I bet small. I get 2 callers. The turn is a 3, so complete brick to the board. I'm hoping I can still get some more value. I bet small again, and then he calls. The river is a jack, so now I'm thinking I can't really get value for much more. So what I'm gonna do at this point is I'm going to check, try to trap, see if he bets out, see if the jack hits him and suits him well. So I check, he bets pretty big, and I jam on him because I got him covered. Like I said, at this point I'm sitting at like 70 big blinds. So I jam, and he calls for less, for probably about 25 big blinds. He didn't have very much behind. And then he had pocket 8, so he flopped top full house, and I flopped quads, which is a crazy hand. Now I'm up, back to the table. One of the bigger stacks, but definitely not the biggest. Still got some work to do. Registration's done. Let's get it in.
Alan, you got 41? Yeah. Yes, correct.
Okay, here we are coming back in from dinner break. I went to dinner break with 401,000 chips. So it has been one crazy, crazy ride these last four levels. So I've been up, I've been down. I had a few crazy hands. I'm gonna try to put those up here, run through those with you. But right now I'm on the dinner break. It was insane. So right now I'm doing good. We're in the money, and going back, starting with about 40 big blinds. So at this point, we're going to be able to play mid to deep stacked late in the tournament. We got about 40 players left. Top prize is 21,000 and change. So it would be great to get that, especially because, like I said, the bankroll is at stake. So with the bankroll at stake, I'm definitely trying to run it up to help us play the rest of this series, because if we can get some good cashes, we'll be playing all of the tournaments in this series. There's some mystery bounties and things, but don't want to get ahead of myself. Definitely just want to play here and make sure that we're doing good. So it looks like we got a few minutes before we start back up, and let's see if we also, one reason I was able to chip up real well, from under the gun I had pocket 3s twice, and I flopped a set each time. First time flopped a set against the big blind, ended up getting about 50, 60K out of her. And then the last time I raised from under the gun with pocket threes, he jams on me from the small blind. I tank hard, but I end up calling, getting my money in bad. He had pocket kings, so I got in real bad, but I flop a set. And that right there is how I got an extra 100K in my stack, leveling back up to 300 and something. And then after that, that just brought me up to 400K. So here we are, back at the table.
I bet you the 2 dealers I got in my car accident are going to be yelled at too.
You're getting up for sure.
Okay, so we are on our first break after dinner break. I don't know which break this is, but update, I am sitting at about 470 or 80,000. Maybe I might have just crossed the 500,000 mark. Hasn't been too much to talk about in the last 4 levels, simply because I haven't ran bad, but haven't really had too many hands to really get in there. You know, it's a very weird stack depth right now. You know, I'm sitting right now probably at like 25 big blinds. So even after break, you know, I had 400K, but that's still 40 big blinds. And, you know, with 25-minute levels, it's going up real rapidly. The only real hands that I have that, one of them I had Queen Jack of spades versus a small blind jam. I was in the under the gun small blind jams for like 150,000. So, you know, I snapped that off because I'm sitting at about 400 plus. So I snapped that off, and he has Queen 7. So he jammed on me with Queen 7 offsuit, and then he flops a 7, and then the board runs out, brick, and he ends up doubling up off of me, off that one, and then an 8. But as far as me, nothing real special. Moved a couple tables, so now I'm at my second table since dinner break, and then we're down to the last 16, so we're getting closer to that final table. Just got to hold on. Like I said, it's a weird stack depth. We're coming back at blinds being 15,000, 25,000. So I'm really sitting at a very weird stack depth where, you know, if I get some decent cards in a late position, I'm probably going to be jamming, trying to steal some blinds here, trying to avoid any big all-ins with anyone at the table. There's one really big stack. I think he's the chip leader, but everyone else is floating anywhere between that 200 to 400,000 mark, and right around there, maybe some more in the 500K mark, but really everybody's around that. So I don't want to get into any big hands where I could potentially be crippled, but that's poker. I got to play what I got to play. So we'll see. I'll give you updates when I can.
We're going to raise these and buy the rest of them up.
Huh?
Did you fold a big hand?
1, 2.
What is going on? I didn't get a chance to film closing to last night after the tournament, but a few things happened in the last few levels before the final table. Went back from break. It wasn't the final 3 tables, it was the final 2 tables. We were 9-handed, 18 left, and I was pretty card dead for most of it, so not too many big important hands that happened there, but we got down to 14, so we're 4 away from the final table. Final tabled was 10 people final tabled, and with 14 left, I finally got a hand. I had pocket 10s on the big blind. Under the gun folds. Then the low jack or +1, he raises, and then you have the hijack who 3-bets. Now the hijack, a little story on him, very goofy guy. I 3-bet jammed on him a little earlier in the tournament with pocket 2s from the small blind, and he tank folds, and he asked me about the hand, and I told him I had deuces. He had pocket 7s, but he had been drinking the whole night. He's real kind of loose, not really too loose with his bets, but he's real open, talkative, everything like that. So when he puts in the 3-bet in this situation to 120 big blinds, and the blinds are 15, 25, 25 right now, so he 3-bets to 120. It folds to me in the big blind, and I know he's 3-betting pretty light. He's kind of tilted, hasn't won any hands, and probably just trying to get one through at this point. So I'm not too worried about him. But my initial thoughts are it's a jam or it's a fold. Everyone has been playing very face up in their play so far. So I'm thinking either jam or fold. But I also opt for the third option, which would have been a call, because I could see them calling off my bet with some random ace-x suited, and I wanted the chance to see the flop to make sure that they didn't spike an ace on the flop before I jam my whole stack. It's a little nitty, but it had worked in this tournament because everybody, or most people, were recreational players. I didn't really run into too many professional players during this tournament, but there were a few that I had some hands with. So anyway, I flat, and then the original raiser, he jams. So at this point, I'm the hijack, he folds, and I knew he was light. So he folds his back to me, and I'm really thinking of what he could have. Now the secret here was I caught a glimpse of a shadow off of his sweater, and I see his pulse, just his heartbeat just racing through the shadow, and I'm like, okay, he's nervous, he's not fully confident in his hand, but he might still have 2 high cards, something like that. So I had him kind of on like maybe ace queen, maybe ace jack. I think he probably would have jammed ace king under the from the under the gun low jack position, or the +1 low jack position. So I tanked for a while, but I'm also thinking if I do win these chips, I'm good, because at this point I'll have like 101.2 M's. So I call it. He flips over ace jack of hearts. So the flop comes deuce deuce 5, deuce deuce 5, 1 heart. So I'm thinking, okay, this is okay for now, let's keep it low. So the turn comes the 4 of hearts. It's low, but it's a heart, and it brings in the wheel draw. So at this point I'm like, okay, I need these cards to go up a little bit, because right now I'm not sitting in a place where if I lose this, I got 150K left. So now the river comes off, and what do you know? It is a 3. So the 3 flops, river's off. He catches the wheel, catches the straight, and that chops off 530K from my 680K stack. So that crippled me, leaving me with 150K. The blinds go up to 15K, 30K, and at this point, I'm just sitting there waiting. Luckily, I get into the button with my 150K, and I'm basically just waiting to see if I can get a hand. I'm card dead all the way around. It gets to me in the button. I have king 3 offsuit. It folds to the small blind. He limps. Now, this is the second error that I made. I checked. In this situation, you should always jam. I even checked the charts, and with my particular stack, less than 10 big blinds, blind versus a limp from the small blind, king 3 is a pure jam. So king 3 offsuit is a pure jam. So I should have jammed there, but I decided to check. The flop came 3, 6, 4. The small blind checks. I got a pair. I jam my stack. He tanks. He decides, does he want to risk the additional 90K I had behind? And he's sitting maybe at like 300,000. So it's still a considerable amount of his stack. But he calls it off. He flips over 4 deuce offsuit, and he wins with because he flopped the 4. I had the 3. The board runs out. No high cards. No pairing of the board. So at that point, he wins with a pair of 4s, and that busts me out in 11th place. Like I said, that's something that probably those are 2 instances that I should have jammed, because if I jam in those instances, both of those instances would have been a fold, and that gives me opportunity to try to make it to the final table. Because after I busted on that king 3, that busted the bubble, and the final table was made. And at that point, I was out. I was in for 800, and I was out for 1565, which was a profit of 765. So that is going to help me, one, with the bankroll, but also, I'll be basically free rolling the event 2, which you're going to see next.